What if the one moment you never planned for becomes the beginning of the life you were always meant to live? Isaac Reed had seen many things in his years as a cowboy, but he had never seen anything like the young woman sleeping in the wagon yard that cold October morning in 1873. The sun had barely begun to rise over the Colorado foothills, yet the air already bit hard enough to freeze breath. Isaac had just stepped out of the livery stable, ready to head out of Silver Creek, when he stopped in his tracks. She lay curled on the back of an old wagon behind the general store, wrapped only in a thin shawl. Her chestnut hair spilled across the rough boards, her face soft and peaceful even against the bitter cold. She looked like someone life had pushed too far, yet she held on with quiet strength. Isaac tightened his grip on the wool blanket in his hand. He had spent the night in the livery, like he always did before heading back on the trail. He should have mounted Domino, his paint horse, and ridden away. That was the plan. His life was a long stretch of road, one town after another, nothing and no one to tie him down. But something about her stopped him. Something he couldn't name. He walked toward the wagon, moving slow so he wouldn't scare her. "Ma'am," he said gently, "ma'am, you'll catch your death out here." Her eyes flew open, hazel, wide, cautious. She sat up quickly, pulling the thin shawl tight around herself. She looked ready to run, though her boots were worn and her body shaking from cold. Isaac raised one hand to show he meant no harm and held out the blanket with the other. "I thought you might need this more than I do." She stared at him, unsure. Her voice came out rough from the cold. "Why would you care?" Quote, "Because my ma raised me better than to walk past someone who needs help," he said simply. A harsh gust swept through the yard, and she shivered so hard he saw pain flash across her face. After a long moment, she reached out and took the blanket. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'm Lydia Montgomery." "Isaac Reed," he replied with a nod. "And you planning on staying out here for long?" She hesitated. "It's Mrs. Montgomery, and no, I'm waiting for the stage to Denver. It comes tomorrow." Isaac noticed the things she tried to hide. No luggage, worn boots, eyes that looked tired in a way no rest could fix. "You eaten recently?" he asked. "I don't need charity," she said quickly. "I didn't say you did. I just don't like eating alone. Company would make the food taste better, that's all." Her stomach growled loud enough to answer for her. A small, embarrassed smile touched her lips. "Well," she said softly, "I suppose I can help with that." They headed across the street to the Liberty Bell Diner. Inside, the warm air hit them like a blessing. Only 2 miners sat at the counter, and Martha, the woman who ran the place, was wiping tables. "Isaac Reed," Martha called. "Thought you'd be long gone by now." "Got delayed," he said. "Martha, this is Mrs. Montgomery." Martha's eyes swept over Lydia gently, taking in the blanket, the tired face, the thinness that spoke of hungry days. But her smile stayed warm. "Any friend of Isaac's is welcome here." They sat in a corner, and Isaac noticed how Lydia kept her back to the wall, eyes flicking to the door every time it opened. When the food came, eggs, bacon, biscuits, she tried to eat slow, but her hunger showed. "Denver's a ways from here," Isaac said. "You got someone waiting there?" "My cousin," she replied. "She owns a millinery shop." She mentioned needing help. "Sounds promising." "Yes," but her voice sounded tight, uncertain. Isaac didn't push. He'd seen enough runaways, enough people trying to start over, to know that silence sometimes told more truth than words. When they finished eating, he paid before she could protest. "I should get back to the wagon," she said quietly. "My things." "What things?" he asked gently. Her eyes lowered. "Nothing worth stealing, I suppose." Isaac rubbed the back of his neck. What he was about to offer wasn't smart. It wasn't even reasonable. But the thought of her freezing in that wagon made his stomach twist. "I've got a room at Widow Cooper's boarding house," he said. "Paid through tonight. I can sleep in the stable. You'd be warmer in the room." Her eyes sharpened with suspicion. "What would you expect in return?" "Nothing but knowing you won't freeze," Isaac said, a hint of frustration slipping out. Not every man wants something from you, Mrs. Montgomery. Shame flickered across her face. I'm sorry, she murmured. No need to be. These times make it hard to trust anyone. He tipped his hat. Room 3, keys under the mat. The offer stands. As he turned to leave, she called after him. Mr. Reed, why are you being kind to me? He thought for a moment. Because someone once was kind to me when I needed it. She held his gaze, something unreadable in her eyes. Later that day, Isaac found reasons, poor excuses, really, to stay in town. He told himself he'd leave soon, but his boots didn't move toward the road. By sunset, after helping Martha with her firewood, he saw Lydia step out of the boarding house holding his folded blanket. You're still here, she said, sounding surprised. Got caught up with a few things, he replied. You eaten? He asked. She shook her head. Martha saved me some stew, there's plenty. This time she accepted without hesitation. They walked together through the evening chill, unaware that trouble, real trouble, was already making its way towards Silver Creek. What if the past you're running from finds you right when you start to feel safe? Isaac and Lydia sat at their usual corner table in the Liberty Bell diner, the warm stew taking the bite out of the cold evening. Outside, lamps flickered across Silver Creek's dirt street as the sky darkened. For a little while, it felt almost peaceful. But Isaac didn't miss the way Lydia checked the door each time someone walked by. She tried to hide it, but fear clung to her like her shadow. When they stepped outside after eating, she handed back his blanket. I never thanked you properly, she said softly, for the room, the food, the kindness. Anyone would have done the same. I don't think that's true, she replied. Isaac didn't know what to say to that, so he simply nodded. The next morning came cold and gray. Isaac meant to leave town, truly, but something tugged at him, something he didn't want to name. He'd packed his gear, saddled Domino, and walked toward the trail out of town, but his boots turned toward the stage depot instead. He told himself he only wanted to say goodbye. He spotted her right away. Lydia stood near the crowd, waiting for the Denver stage. Her thin shawl pulled tight as the wind cut across the yard, but something else caught his eye. A man lurking near the mercantile, watching her with too much interest. A tall man, lean, dark beard, new coat, a gun at his hip. Every instinct Isaac had learned from years on the trail screamed danger. He moved toward Lydia, keeping his voice calm. Morning. She spun, surprised. Mr. Reed, I thought you'd be gone. Thought I'd see you off. He lowered his voice. Don't look now, but that man by the store can't take his eyes off you. Fear flashed across her face before she could hide it. What does he look like? She whispered. Isaac described him quietly. Her breath caught. James Weber, she said. He worked for my husband. He's dangerous. How dangerous? Henry owed him money, she said. After Henry died, Weber said I owed him instead, and he didn't want money anymore. Isaac's jaw tightened. He'd known men like Weber, men who thought fear was a form of payment. The stage comes in 20 minutes, Isaac murmured. We need to get you out of sight. Before they could move, Weber stepped out from the shadows, calling across the yard. Mrs. Montgomery, what a pleasant surprise. Lydia's hand clamped onto Isaac's arm. Keep walking, Isaac whispered, but Weber closed in fast, blocking their path. Now that's not polite, Weber said, smiling coldly, running off with debts unpaid. I owe you nothing, Lydia said, though her voice shook. Weber's eyes slid to Isaac. This your new cowboy friend? Think he can protect you? Isaac met his stare. She said she's not going with you. Weber's smile faded. The two men measured each other, the tension growing thick enough to choke the air. When Weber's hand twitched toward his gun, Isaac moved first. His Colt was out and leveled at Weber's chest in a clean, steady motion. I wouldn't, Isaac said quietly. Weber froze, though his eyes burned with threat. You willing to die for a woman you barely know? Weber growled. You willing to die today? Isaac shot back. For a second, nobody breathed. Then Weber raised his hands. This isn't over. he told Lydia. "Henry owed me, and I collect." Isaac didn't lower his gun until Weber and his two partners retreated down the street. Lydia trembled beside him. "He won't stop." "No," Isaac agreed, "so we don't give him the chance." Fear and hope battled in her eyes. "What do you mean?" "You can't take the stage. He'll follow. He'll corner you somewhere else." Her voice barely rose above the wind. "What am I supposed to do?" Isaac looked toward the north road, toward Wyoming, toward the unknown. "I'm heading north," he said. "Wyoming is far from Central City. Harder to track. If you want, you can ride with me." Lydia hesitated, glancing toward where Weber had vanished. Then she lifted her chin. "I trust you," she said. "If you're sure." Isaac felt something shift in him, something deep and quiet. "I'm sure." Within an hour, they had bought a steady mare, gathered supplies, and left Silver Creek behind. Snow began to fall as they followed the trail into the mountains, each mile taking them farther from Weber and closer to whatever waited ahead. By midday, the storm turned harsh. Isaac guided them toward a trapper's cabin he knew of near the pass. When they reached it at dusk, half frozen and tired, he pushed open the door with a gun drawn. Inside was empty, cold, safe. They led the horses into the lean-to and started a fire. As the flames warmed the small cabin, Lydia's hand stopped shaking. She sat close to the hearth, wrapped in the blanket he had given her that morning in the wagon yard. "You must think I'm trouble," she said softly. Isaac looked at her, really looked at her, the strength beneath the fear, the courage in her eyes despite everything she'd been through. "No," he said quietly. "I think you're someone worth helping." The fire crackled, snow beat against the walls, and inside that tiny cabin, a cold and dangerous journey slowly began to feel like something else, like the start of a bond neither of them had expected. That night, as Lydia slept curled near the fire, Isaac kept watch. The storm howled outside, but inside, he felt a peace he hadn't known in years. He looked at her sleeping form and wondered just what road he had stepped onto, and why it felt so right. What if the person you chose to save becomes the person you can't imagine losing? Morning came quiet and bright after the storm, the snow around the cabin shining like glass under the sun. Inside, Isaac added wood to the fire while Lydia slowly woke, warm beneath the blanket he had given her. "We should stay here today," Isaac said. "Snow's too deep to travel far." Lydia nodded. "It's strange. I feel safer in this little cabin than I have in years." He didn't say it, but he felt the same. They spent the morning gathering wood, tending the horses, and finding small ways to warm the room. The simple tasks settled some of Lydia's fear. When they shared a small meal, Isaac finally asked the question he'd been holding back. "Lydia, what exactly was Henry mixed up in?" She stared into the fire for a moment before answering. "Not just mining," she said quietly. "He was planning robberies, stage routes, gold shipments. I found the papers after he died." Understanding hit Isaac fast and hard. "And Weber?" "His partner. When Henry died, Weber wanted me instead. I burned the papers, but maybe he thinks I still know too much." Isaac's jaw clenched. Now he knew why Weber wouldn't stop. "We'll keep moving," Isaac said. "Wyoming's quiet. Harder to track. We'll disappear there." "Do you really believe that?" she asked. He looked at her, really looked. Snow in her hair, worry in her eyes, strength in every part of her. "I believe I won't let anything happen to you." Her breath caught, but she didn't look away. By afternoon, the snow had softened enough to travel. They rode through the mountains, following trails Isaac knew from years of driving cattle. Lydia fought through the cold, through the exhaustion, saying little but never complaining. By evening, their journey slowed. Weber was out there somewhere, maybe a day behind, maybe two. They stopped in a small trading post for supplies, but what they learned hit them hard. 3 men had passed through the day before, asking questions about a woman. Isaac didn't show fear, but Lydia saw the tension in his jaw. "We need to go west instead," he said quietly once they were alone. "Away from the roads he expects." She didn't argue. The next 2 days were rough. Cold meals, long rides, nights sleeping in hidden hollows. But they kept going. closer to Wyoming, closer to safety, closer to each other. During one cold campfire night, Lydia asked softly, "Where will we go after Wyoming?" Isaac stared into the flames. "There's a place called Pine Ridge," he said. "Small. Honest, folks. We could stay the winter, work, start fresh." "And what would we be?" she asked. "A cowboy and a widow traveling together?" Isaac hesitated, then said the only answer that could protect her. "People won't ask questions if we say we're married." Lydia was quiet for a long time. The fire popped between them. "Then that's what we'll be," she whispered. And just like that, everything changed. They reached Pine Ridge after days of riding through thick forest and snow. Isaac introduced her as Lydia Reed. A simple lie, but a safer one. The small settlement welcomed them, offering work and a one-room cabin that needed cleaning but could be home. For the first time in a long time, Lydia breathed without fear. Days passed, then weeks. Isaac chopped wood. Lydia helped at the boarding house. Together they fixed up the cabin. Together they ate, talked, laughed, slept side by side. Careful at first, then less careful as trust and closeness took root. One night by the fire, Lydia whispered, "It doesn't feel like pretending anymore." Isaac's heart pounded. "It doesn't feel like that to me either." She reached for his hand. "What do you want, Isaac?" He didn't hide the truth. "You." She leaned in, tears soft in her eyes. "Then you already have me." Their first real kiss was slow, gentle, full of everything they'd held back. And when they lay together that night, it wasn't because they needed to pretend. It was because they had fallen in love. Winter deepened, and so did their bond. They planned to leave in spring, go east, start a small farm, find real safety. But danger found them first. One cold March evening, 3 riders appeared at the edge of Pine Ridge. Isaac knew the shape of the lead rider even before he saw the face. Weber. "Inside," Isaac said sharply. "Now." Lydia ran into the cabin. Isaac stepped forward alone, hand near his gun. Weber dismounted with a cruel smile. "You've been hard to find, cowboy." "You need to leave," Isaac warned. "Not without the woman." Isaac shook his head. "Not happening." Weber's smile faded. 3 months I've been tracking her. You think I'm riding away empty-handed?" Before Isaac could reply, the cabin door swung open. Lydia stood there with Isaac's Winchester leveled at Weber's chest. "That's far enough, James." Weber's eyes widened. "You don't have the nerve." "Try me," she said. Neighbors stepped outside their cabins, drawn by the noise. Too many witnesses, too much risk. Weber realized he had lost. "You'll regret this," he hissed. "No," Lydia said firmly, "I won't." Weber and his men rode off into the dusk, snow kicking up behind them. Isaac let out a slow breath. "Lydia, that was dangerous." "So was saving me," she replied softly, "but you did it anyway." He pulled her close. "It's over," he whispered. "Is it?" she asked. He looked into her eyes, into the strength that had grown there over miles of fear and hope. "Yes," he said. "Because whatever comes next, we face it together." They left Pine Ridge at sunrise a week later. The settlement gathered to send them off, giving supplies, hugs, and blessings. Isaac and Lydia rode out as husband and wife in truth, not because of danger, but because of choice. They traveled east through spring and summer until they found a small cabin and 10 acres of land near the Platte River in Nebraska territory. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. Together, they built a life. Together, they found peace. And one snowy evening, a year after the morning he found her sleeping in that wagon yard, Lydia placed his hand gently on her stomach and whispered, "Isaac, we're going to have a baby." Tears filled his eyes as he held her close. "That morning," he whispered, "I only meant to give you a blanket. I never knew I'd find my whole life instead." And Lydia, smiling through happy tears, whispered back, "You didn't just save me, Isaac Reed. You found me, and I found home."